Hello. Hi, Richard. How are you?
Hey, hello.
How are you?
Worked out.
It's a great pleasure to have you, Richard. It's an honor, to be honest.
Oh, it's a pleasure talking to you. I'm glad we sorted out the technology.
Yeah, I can see a lot of stuff behind you, a lot of gadgets.
Yeah, this is my development lab. I'm just trying to steer. Yeah, it's part of my development lab. So luckily it's next to my house. So the whole lockdown thing isn't causing too much of a problem.
Yeah. It sounds like it's cold in your part of the world.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't wearing this a couple of days ago. It's got really cold and wet today, but it's going to be warm again in a few days' time. It was really, really warm yesterday, but now it's, yeah, cold.
What's the temperature like in Salisbury right now?
This is about 15, something like that. It was
15.
25, like 15, yeah, 15 degrees centigrade. It was 25 yesterday, pretty much. Yeah, it's really dropped very quickly.
Nice. Well, it's almost 32 right here in Dubai. So,
wow.
Yeah.
You just need one of these for the air conditioning. That's all.
To be honest, I had the air conditioner working non-stop because and the temperature keeps growing day after day. And while in July and August we easily reach a humidity of 85%, 80 to 85%.
Yeah.
And temperature rise easily to 45 to 50 degree Celsius, which is quite aggressive.
Yeah, I've been there enough and in the wider region enough to know how crazy hot it gets. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been in Dubai before, right? I saw a couple of your videos in Gravity on YouTube. I saw you did a couple of exhibitions and around the city, didn't you?
Yeah, we've flown in Dubai, I think, a couple of times. Flown in Saudi twice. I've flown in where else? I think actually it's only Saudi and Dubai. I think I've flown in, but yeah, a couple of times in both.
Yeah, there was a massive demand for such a technology right now. About obviously, unfortunately, the COVID-19 hit, so now everyone is on a standstill. So I just want to ask you, Richard, how has your business been impacted by the COVID-19?
Yeah, so I mean, we sit here now. This is 3 years into our journey since I launched the company, and we've achieved 103 events in 30 different countries. And in fact, above me, if I, at the risk of messing my tripod thing up here, all of these. In fact, I'll just show you. Look, all of these.
What's that?
All of those lanyards there. Hang on a minute. All of those lanyards there. Look, those are some of the events. Look at that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm an absolute fan of events. I love networking. I attended more than 200 networking events in the last 2 years, and this is why. Yeah, and this is why I started this business actually. When I was in the UK, I was working in Wantage, next to the Williams F1 design R&D center for and I wasn't really comfortable in meeting people and being I was doing IT. I worked 10 years as an IT programmer, as a project manager and I was managing offshore projects with Bangalore in India with a big company. But once I came in Dubai, I started, here networking is the standard. You need to do at least 2 or 3 events per week in order to get business. Because you started with grabbing business cards, and then you do a heavy follow-up in order to be able to do something. So then I started my business, Signature Network. It's basically like a Tinder for business. So we connect startup with investors. We connect, job seekers with recruiting companies, and attending major events like, I don't know if you're familiar with GITEX in Dubai.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
GITEX is the biggest exhibition here in Middle East with regards to new technologies. So you name it, AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, new softwares. We had Etisalat, which is the #1 telecommunication company here, and they do massive stuff with 4G and 5G. You can see like flying cars, but really like Audi did an exhibition with flying cars and stuff like that. So I thought maybe that is something that you have attended here in Dubai. So
yeah, lots of those kind of events. I'm not sure I'm in Dubai or not, but yeah, we loads of events.
I've seen one video when you were invited by Cisco. I don't know in which country. Was it in the US?
Barcelona. No, that was one of the events earlier this year. Yeah, I flew in on stage to do their closing keynote for 7,000 people in a huge, great big room, basically. Yeah, in the Barcelona kind of conference center.
All right. Yeah, I saw the video. I was quite shocked by how quiet was the audience. Were they expecting you to come really, or was it like kind of surprise?
No. It was a surprise. I mean, they did get given ear defenders, so they knew something was coming, but it was a surprise for them. Yeah. Now that was an unusual one. I've flown indoors a few times. It's not usually to be recommended. It's pretty noisy, and you do get a lot of the kind of jet exhaust. That it's okay, but you need a decent air system to move the air around a bit. But yeah, that was a fun one. That was probably my last major event before COVID shut everything down. So yeah, to answer your question, those events, they've all come to an end, obviously. There's loads that we had scheduled in, and they've all been paused or pushed back or whatever, just, you know, like you'd imagine. We also had loads of client training as well in here in California. That's all paused as well. And most annoyingly, we had a huge inaugural jet suit race event planned for Bermuda in March. We've got a shipping container out there with everything in it. We had all the flights booked. Everything was all lined up for sponsors. It was going to be an amazing festival of human capability and machine technology. And it's all on pause. So that's a bit annoying. Although I will admit that actually I'm sort of secretly enjoying having the relative peace and quiet of getting on with R&D in here, and particularly going back through our media archives and pulling out some of the thousands of hours of footage from all those events and all our testing and all our training of clients. You know, we've done some amazing stuff with people like Zuckerberg and Bezos and Musk and all these people. And usually it was just a question of getting on another plane and going to the next event. So I'm now enjoying putting a whole load of the behind the scenes stuff up on YouTube. So like Akshay Kumar, for instance, you know, the famous Bollywood actor.
I just saw that. Yeah,
I just put that up last night. I mean, honestly, editing it in some degree of competence does take a while, you know, but it's really fun sharing with, especially with people in lockdown and with kids and, you know, young people stuck indoors. It's really fun digging out a whole load of that content and sharing it. So it'd be great if you can share the link on your platform, but it's Gravity Industries. Yeah, if you look for Gravity Industries on YouTube, but also Take on Gravity on Instagram. Take on Gravity, there's quite a lot on there as well. So
yeah,
that's pretty fun.
I'm one of your followers, believe it or not. That I've studied each and every video that you have posted. I really love what you're doing, and you're actually the perfect translation and the example of that. The man can really fly. So I'm a huge fan. I used to play basketball. You can't see me right now, but I'm quite tall. I'm 6'6".
Yeah, you kind of look quite tall somehow. You got the camera angle right.
Actually, I have set up a stand-up desk at home because I suffered from severe back problems. I had a sciatica and a disc prolapse 4 years ago that almost paralyzed my left leg. So the GP and the doctor said I better have like a stand-up desk would be the healthiest way for me to moving forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to set it quite right. And can someone like me, you know, my weight is 115. That translates into pounds in, I don't know, maybe 200 and.
I work in kilos. Yeah, I work in kilos. 150.
Are you working kilos?
That's fairly heavy. I mean, there is no escaping that weight when it comes to flying things is a thing, right? The standard jet suits. I mean, look, my head's in the way, but I mean, there's 6 jet suits in the back there. There's one of the ones. In fact, actually, the one down here is one I was flying recently, but they're all quite similar. Those 3. They, on a day like today in the UK, will lift probably a 90-kilo person and fly around for a while. Okay. You could probably just about get towards the 95. The problem is you're starting to then get a bit tight on what weight of fuel you can carry. You know, I'm luckily pretty light from all the ultramarathon running and stuff and all the training I still do, and it kind of makes it easier. The good news is that the new generation, the Mark III jet suit that we're working on, and I've flown the prototype of, it's hiding around in here somewhere, looking very crude, but anyway, that has an extra 20 kilos of lift capability and only weighs half a kilo more, which sounds impossible, but I've flown it and it is insane. And it starts up in 10 seconds instead of 60 seconds, and it is a beast. So that would give you a much better chance of taking off. I mean, you could just build one with even another small engine on the back. You're just gradually adding more and more horsepower, which means you're adding more and more weight. So it's very doable. It's just obviously easier if the person's a little bit lighter than you.
But yeah, so I imagine you have quite a specific lifestyle in order to keep yourself very fit and light, in order to be able to fly around and still have that that thrust power and that vectoring, in order to lift you up quite quickly?
In the early days, it was really tough doing it. And my time in the British Royal Marines and my time ultramarathon running and doing calisthenics training, I was pretty light, strong and fit. And when I was learning how to do all this, that was really useful, especially falling over and stuff a lot, only a few feet off the ground, but still it's helpful if you're reasonably fit and then you don't hurt yourself quite so much. But now we've refined it so much that you can see, I mean, I don't want to be unfair, but there's some fairly senior guys and girls learning to fly these. If you look on the Instagram, we've had guys in their 70s learning to fly this in a day. The strength thing is not a problem anymore. The weight thing, yes, the heavier you are, the more you've got to run the engines very hard, the more power you've got to have going through your arms. But it's like anything. I mean, it's like if you're going to go learning to race a mountain bike across country, it's going to be easier the lighter, fitter and stronger you are. It's the same with most sports, but it's not prohibitive. But you're a big guy. We could definitely build you one if you were so inclined to easily get you off the ground, but it's not standard, I would say.
Yeah. I know that there is a lot of electronics and software coding behind your technology, right? And it probably takes one of the most prominent developers to be behind your team and to be able to build, I don't know, but it sounds pretty complex. Can someone operate remotely? Can a suit be operated remotely by an operator, like helping you fly or helping you control the balance or see what you can see on the screen?
And you wouldn't want that. I really wouldn't want that. It would be like a bicycle, right? So it's not a very sexy example, but it's a bicycle, okay? So, if I hand you a bicycle and you've never seen a bicycle before, I hand it to you, you let go of it, it falls on the floor and you think, this is a joke. It's never going to work. And yet, weirdly, within minutes sometimes, depending on how receptive you are to learning a new skill, you can get on that bike, wobble around and start cycling around, and then this miraculous thing happens where you start looking up and smiling and looking at where you want to cycle to, and from then on for the rest of your life you never think about all the clever stuff going on to achieve that balance. Your brain, which is great at having you walk around without falling over most of the time, is such an amazingly powerful balancing tool that you just repurpose it in minutes to learn to ride a bike. Rollerblade, skateboard, snowboard, water ski, all the things are the same, right? They're all very similar repurposing of balance. It turns out with a jet suit, because it's a simple splaying of a number of thrust vectors, that it's inherently stable. It's more stable than it is walking.
Yeah, so it's like a camera tripod. It's like a camera tripod,
exactly,
right?
Yes, exactly. I am more stable. I can land on a moving vehicle at 30 miles an hour. I can land on a moving ship at 30 knots in heavy seas. And the scariest moment is when I let the engines go and I let them drop down. Now I'm wobbling around like an idiot. As soon as I've got that power, though, I'm really stable. So it's just a learning process of letting your brain feel that if you put one arm that way, guess what? You flow this way. If you lift one up this way, you go the other way. If you sort of relax into it, you can learn it miraculously quickly. It's not a physically tiring thing, but learning to do it can be quite tiring as you're doing all the wrong things. You're kind of flaring your arms out too aggressively, having to lift the engines up too far. It's just, again, like learning any new sport. It's tiring.
Yeah.
When it's new. But once you've got it, no, I've done 12, 15 flights in a day. I mean, that's quite tiring, but,
wow.
But if it was that tiring, I wouldn't be able to do that. So no, and I know I do run quite a lot, but mostly that's just to get out, get fresh air, go for a run with the dog or my kids, and really let my brain relax rather than anything else. But yes, a helpful byproduct is I can eat pretty much anything and not get too heavy, I suppose.
Fish and chips, right? With mushy peas. Try to avoid that.
Every night, yes. Only interspersed on Sundays by Sunday roast. No, it doesn't work like that. No. Then I probably wouldn't take off. I wouldn't take off if I adopted that diet plan. But no.
What about the drinks? You have to. It's not probably the healthiest thing to do when you fly a jet suit.
So no, I don't. I'm not teetotal. I don't drink a huge amount. I will admit I'm probably falling in the category of people drinking slightly more than usual during this lockdown period. Not because I've got any big deep-seated problem, but actually I quite enjoy beer every evening at the moment. I have. I'm slightly embarrassed to say, flown at an event. It was there was one in Thailand where there was this amazing rainstorm. And I'd done one flight and the rainstorm hit and we shut down and we had to leave the suit. And then we went to reception and it was a beautiful reception with lots of lovely food and drink. I had to do a little talk. I had a couple of pints and I thought that it wasn't going to happen. And I was feeling very relaxed and happy with myself. And then they said, oh, look, the weather's cleared. Why don't you go out and fly? And, and I thought, well, head says no, heart says, yeah, why not? And to be fair, I don't want to be too silly about it, but I was flying like a meter off the ground. There was water there as well, which is only this deep, so it would have cushioned my fall. But I have to say, I flew one of the most beautiful, smooth, gentle, relaxed flights. I did this wonderful fly in. You can fly in, you can see this online. If I go sideways, you can fly in really fast, sling your legs out, throw a load of thrust sideways, just enough, get rid of the momentum, and then just plant, dang, straight down like a sort of superhero landing. I did a really slick one of those. And I've joked that when people are learning to do this, I do wonder if it would be a faster learning experience if people were as relaxed as if they've just been on a sort of modest night out. Again, I want to reinforce no one, other than that one incident, no one learns to fly a jet suit having drinks, and it's all done on a tether as well, so you know it wouldn't be as bad. But it is funny how if you relax genuinely into that learning process, how quickly it can be, and how quickly you can get it.
How did you manage to go from breaking your old record from going from 32 miles an hour back 3 years back, from 32 miles an hour to 85 miles an hour just last November?
Yeah, so I mean, it shows how quickly we evolve the technology, and it's always evolving. You've just heard me describe the performance increase we're going to see from this latest Mark III suit. That extra 20 kilos of thrust will come in very handy when it comes to going quickly, for instance. Yeah, I mean, the main reason, though, apart from us just refining the technology, the main reason was we use something called a leg wing. So if you imagine a full skydiver, you know, they have a squirrel suit kind of thing. We used a leg wing version of that. It's custom built for our needs.
Like the Red Bull thing, right? Which they have.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If you're, there's my AirPods. If you're flying along like this, there's my body flying along like this. The faster you go, the more you flatten out. If you have a leg wing, you can flatten out even more aggressively. And then that rear engine isn't pushing down anymore. It doesn't need to, because the leg wing is creating the lift. It can push sideways, which is suddenly now turning into like a sort of cruise missile.
So it's like it's like an horizontal power now.
Right. And now my arms are still doing a lot of lift because we didn't have an upper body wing then. And we played with a lot of those, but it's quite hard to get that really stable. But the leg wing enough was fine to have pretty much 50 kilos of thrust blowing me forward. So we can go way quicker. But I mean, 85 was fast enough to still have it acceptably safe. You know, hitting the water at 85 miles an hour is going to really hurt. You go above 100, you know, you're going to really be in trouble. So yeah, that was we could have gone a lot quicker, but that was fine for the day.
And you're more in the danger zone when you reach a certain level of speed, right?
Well, it's just energy, isn't it? It's just your energy level goes up. All of that was only 20 feet over water. There are kids on YouTube jumping off bridges way higher than that, and there are kids on jet skis falling off them at speeds close to what we were doing. So, and I'm armored up, covered in, you know, helmet and all protective gear, and with a buoyant suit and a water triggered life jacket. So, but it's still not going to be fun. So we at the moment are not making a habit of trying to really push the speed without a whole bunch of other innovations that are going on behind the scenes.
Okay, well, let me show you something. You've probably seen that before, but I just want to share with you, like, you know, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this has been flying around Dubai, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. That's great, unless you're standing near it. Yeah, that's great. That is very cool.
It's the Hoverbike.
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I've seen that before. There's a lot of drone-based or drone-inspired flight systems out there, and you could argue that's a little bit like a very large quad drone. I am amazed, and I'm sure I met the developers of that at one of the events once. I meet so many people. They did have the cowls around the blades, but I believe the Dubai police asked them to take it off so they could get more lift capacity. But in my mind, that looks so dangerous. If you fall off that, you get kind of minced by your own blades. Or if you fly near somebody, I mean, it's a great thing for crowd control. You could just go and disperse them very quickly, I imagine.
Absolutely,
yeah. But yeah, that's, yeah, I've seen that before. There's a lot of flying different craft out there now, I have to say.
But yeah, I was thinking maybe your technology and your jet suit would be much safer in terms of landing, because that thing, if the engine cuts off, it's going to create a lot of weight, and the landing is not going to be very friendly with the driver, right?
Well, it's not a friendly thing for us to land with no power either. But I mean, one of the key things, unlike most of the other flight platforms, is we just don't choose to go particularly high. We can do. I've gone 150 feet over water, and so you know, I can do. But actually, from an entertainment point of view and an impact on an audience point of view, and even a military point of view, it's more than impactful enough being relatively low to the ground. And then if you get a failure or something you weren't planning on, you're not going to die. You can just, you know, fall in the water or fall from a few feet onto the ground. So that's kind of our attitude to risk. I don't mind taking risk if the downside is survivable.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I really think that could make perfect sense for Dubai police or for ambulances and firefighters to use some of your technology to save lives. So can you imagine in 1 or 2 years' time having this technology being produced massively in order to help the healthcare sector?
I don't know. I mean, at the moment we're focused on the race series. We're focused on doing client training. We've trained over 50 people to fly. You know, we're still doing events when we're allowed. And the race series is our main thing. In parallel with that, there's a lot of search and rescue and military work going on, which is going much faster than I ever imagined. Mainstream transport, at the moment, it would be a bit like driving a Formula One car to go to the shops. I mean, you could do, but it's just not really a sensible option. Now, as the race series evolves, it will leave a trail of more developed technology. It'll get more efficient. I mean, we'll get, you know, it'll get even cheaper to build. I mean, it's all 3D printed at the moment, which is getting it pretty cheap actually. But the racing and human competition is a wonderful mechanism, like in Formula One or IndyCar or NASCAR. It leaves a trail of technology that's come out of that combative, competition that could open doors that we couldn't imagine at the moment. I mean, we built an electric version, for instance, but the weight of the batteries is just prohibitive at the moment. So maybe as battery storage technology gets better with people like Elon Musk and Tesla working on it, that will suddenly open the door, you know, in a miraculous way there. In the meantime, it's having so much of a positive impact on people from an entertainment and inspiration point of view. I just came off a call with some people supporting the race series from a sponsorship point of view. We were supposed to do this big race in Bermuda last month, and it's now postponed until the autumn, and it might even be later than that with the rate we're going. But it will happen, and it will be spectacular. And I think that's our core focus really at the moment.
All right. Richard, I know there's a lot of people, you know, all the men, every man once at one point of their life have dreamed about flying. And
don't just say men. I meet a lot of women who actually, you know what, at a lot of our events, they're almost even more passionate about this because of what you said there. I'll pick you up on it, which is the assumption that sort of motorsport, racing, flying, it's a man thing, which it was in the 1920s and 30s, 40s. But actually, I think women, just as much as men, share that same passion for flight. And I've had bigger reactions sometimes, literally tears in their eyes, giving me a hug kind of reactions at events. So anyway, carry on. I'll pick you up. I wonder we'll pick you up on that. I think it's a mainstream thing.
Sure. Okay. Can we imagine someone who is disabled to use your technology, someone who has lost their legs, for example? Can they be able to fly the jet suit?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm working with some wounded veterans from the military, and I've had a few people who are non-military that also have various different leg impairments. It's something I'd like to do when we are out of this initial stage of lockdown, where it's probably acceptable to have 1 or 2 people within a few meters of you at our test site. And I think, you know, a wheelchair user could easily, I say easily, I have taken off and flown around from a seated position and, you know, letting my legs. Yeah. Yes. I've taken off even sitting in a chair. I've flown around with a strap to a chair. I mean, that wasn't a serious, but it demonstrated that, yes, you don't need your legs for this. The challenge has to be that when you come into land, it has to be safe, that you need to be able to land back on it. If you look at the Marines assault clip on YouTube, you'll see me taking off and landing on a structure strapped to the front of an assault boat. A poorly kept secret is that is a modified massage chair that I was using, because it allowed me to engage with something and connect with it. It's not difficult flying on and off the boat. The difficult thing is, like I said earlier, letting go of the power and then falling off some rickety bar stool, bouncing around on the front of a boat. So I use this massage chair structure to be able to kind of engage and clip into it, as in physically connect with it. So in the same way, we need the same kind of, but less difficult. We need the same kind of structure for somebody with leg impairment that could safely land back again. Arm impairment is possible, but more difficult, because I believe there's an element of very small elbow adjustment,
Right.
obviously shoulder movement, no real wrist adjustment, but I think small amounts of forearm and shoulder adjustment, and it would make it quite hard, but not impossible.
How's the weight? How much is the weight of the arm elements?
They're only about 6 kilos each, but when you're flying, they lift themselves. There's a subtle angle adjustment in there, which means that the thrust actually lifts them. Walking around with them is okay. It reminds me of my military days. It's not fun for 20 minutes walking around with it, but it's fine. It's not outrageously heavy.
Are you still able to do the plank?
Oh yeah, planks. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can still. Weirdly, I can still do quite a bit of my calisthenics, even though I don't really train for it anymore. And I think that's because flying does still use quite a lot of stabilizing kind of muscles and things.
And that I saw one of the videos that helped you to kind of have a reverse thinking about how to generate enough thrust from when you vector the jet suits downwards and lift you up, right? Somehow.
Yeah, it was part of the inspiration that if you can, if you and people listening would know what a planche is, if you imagine doing a press up, but you shuffle your hands backwards, backwards until you sort of seemingly impossibly rock forward and just balance on the palms of your hands in that weird arms backwards press up position. I don't think I can do them anymore, but it's a really hardcore athletic position. But I used to be able to hold them, and I thought, gosh, if I can hold my weight like that, then if you swap out the support of the floor or the bar I'm leaning on for the propulsion of a jet engine or form of thrust of some kind, then why can't I fly? I am leaning on, on that support. And that was part of the inspiration that led me down this journey.
And of course, this technology is your baby. So you saw it growing, and I saw when you first invested in your first engine, and you tried with one arm and then two arms, and then you had even some jet suit on your legs, and then because of the hot air that blew up, and you damaged quite some equipment. But in terms of learning, the learning curve, how long did it take you to have that kind of muscle memory to be able to handle yourself from A to Z?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the very first flight was a weird one where I had two engines on each arm and one engine on the back of each leg. In fact, a lot of the old archive stuff is up in that lab behind me. That was really hard. That was like being a puppet. So you've got like push on each arm and then push on each leg. And there's this funny sensation that when your leg's being pushed upwards, but it's being pushed up from behind the leg, and yet your foot can't feel any floor. It's funny. Your brain's really confused. Like, where's the ground? And yet, why am I rising up? So your sensation is wanting to bend your legs and like pedal for the ground. That's not helpful because
it's like you're holding a baby in the sea or in the swimming pool and trying to pedal.
Exactly that. Yes. So that was really hard. That was a massive effort to really concentrate. It was very much the sort of patting the head, rubbing the stomach kind of thing. It was like trying to concentrate. And then as you're doing it, and there's no guidebook for this, I had to learn in real time. As you're going forwards, you're thinking, oh my God, I'm rising up. Right, I don't want to do this. This is going to get, I could just keep going up. So I've also got to flare out, but I've got to do that also maintaining my balance. Oh my God, I'm bending a leg, straighten the leg. Now the other one's going. Now I'm rising. There's like multiple things cropping up. And it only lasted 6 seconds, the first flight. But as that was going on, I was just constantly battling this, just land it and be safe and bag the first flight, or keep going, see if you can go a bit further. You've got these two voices screaming at you. So yeah, that was a very intense period, very intense 6 seconds, and not entirely different from what I've later gone on and done when it's come to the wing development. Again, there's more and more clips of this is going to be shared soon on YouTube.
Yes.
That the wing stuff is truly, it's hard to put in words what it's like. You take off, you start going forwards, you kind of pop your legs apart, you feel the legs lift, you feel this crazy acceleration. Now you're flying like a little jet fighter, and there's no route, there's no guidebook on this, right? So what do? I'm not rising. I'm rising. Okay. If I had elevators, I'd pitch forward. I don't have elevators. Oh shit. What do? I don't know. I flare my arms out more, try and throw some of my lift away. I'm still rising, and now I'm still accelerating, and now I'm going 50, 60, 70 feet, and I'm thinking, okay, panic is not a good option here. So I know I'll drop out the airflow. I'll vector forwards. Now I'm like a sort of flying squirrel, kind of with no yaw control. I'm sort of going through the air like this. The air wants to tumble me, but I'm fighting it, but I'm still rising. And then gradually my legs drop. Gradually I lose the lift. And then just at that moment, I realized, oh my God, as I was flying along, I nudged the power down. because I was generating lift, to try and reduce my height gain. Now I've gone back into normal flight. I haven't nudged the power up enough, and now I'm dropping like a stone. Nudge, 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 nudge. You know, the water's coming towards me. You know, your brain is so alive with all of that as it's going on. It's quite an amazing experience. And you had well after a few days, you know, a few runs of that kind of thing.
And I saw you had you had a compilation of the failures.
It's only a small number of them, actually. We've got to put some more of them out, but yes, they're for some of the funny team ones. Yes. Yeah,
you must have quite a lot, an encyclopedia about the failures and people, and really the main thing that people see is you flying around and people having a run of applause, but they don't see the back end. They don't see like the backstage where it all started, and where how many times you fall down, how many equipment has been broken, and obviously you managed to repair and to fix quite a few. But have you injured yourself ever?
No, I mean, I bruised myself before. I mentioned earlier about failure has to be recoverable. So I used to cycle commute across London. I used to rock climb. I used to do other things that involved risk.
Wow.
And I don't like taking risk. I like taking risk that is recoverable, where I know if it happens, if the worst case happens, it's not going to do me any permanent damage. You know, and we try to stick to that. You know, I can't put my hand on my heart and say that every single second of this journey has been entirely 100% safe. I mean, crossing the road isn't safe, you know, sometimes. But we absolutely try our best to keep myself and the other pilots safe. And yeah, none of us have had any lasting injuries at all. You know, we've had grazed knees, bruised ribs every now and then, you know, the kind of thing you get falling off a step ladder onto grass, that kind of height. You know, we've been lucky sometimes with some failures that have occurred at the right time rather than the wrong time. But no, we've kept it pretty safe.
You do some meditation exercise, something to strengthen your mindset? Because I don't know how can someone like Richard Browning like sleep at night and sometimes and just, you know, avoid having like nightmares? Oh my God, I'm flying, you know, I'm flying. So do you have sometimes that's...
It's complete euphoria, right? I used to race at a low level. I used to race little race cars and things, like, you know, nothing massive, but that was pretty intense, but nothing compared to what it's like being in free space, entirely free to go wherever you like. I mean, rotate, climb, swoop, stop, hover, swoop down, chase a jet ski, ride alongside it, swivel so you're actually literally running parallel alongside it, then brake harder than it can, you know, swoop up. You know, you could just go wherever you like. It is like this euphoric dream. Over water, it's lovely because you know that if there's some freak technical problem, it's just going to be annoying. You fall in the water and you're fine. If you're pulling those kind of maneuvers over concrete, there's something on your brain that says this isn't very safe, and it could one day, if I keep repeating it, hurt me quite badly. So we don't do that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's so euphoric. I don't have nightmares about it at all. I probably every now and then reflect on thinking, gosh, you know, I look back at some footage and think, you know, I'm glad we didn't have an issue then.
Yeah, it could have been worse. Yeah.
There's a piece of footage I just put out. I can't remember if I did, where I flew, you know, often doing wing testing over the sea is quite scary because you hammer out really fast out to sea. There's nothing there. There'll be the safety boat bouncing along after you at 40 miles an hour, but you're doing 70, right? So, you know, it's behind you. And then something will happen where you go way quicker than you thought, or you'll gain more lift than you thought, or it's more turbulent, or it's harder. And every second that's going by, you're hammering away from your safety point. So then I'll pull up and stop. And I remember, you know, I turned and I swooped back down and then chased back along the wake of where the safety boat had been and going towards this big lighthouse at about a mile away. That's quite lonely. You know, I remember being tired. The wing hadn't worked quite right. And I was in this mode of thinking, I really want to go as fast as I can because I know I'll get home as quickly as I can, because I'm not in a friendly environment. I'm above a grey, angry-looking sea. And home is, I can't even identify people anymore, and it's over there, and I've got to just hammer, you know, and get there as quickly as you can. And that's quite crazy. But I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel scared about it. I think it's quite cool in a way. But yeah, it's more about not wanting to repeat too many instances where it's a little bit hairy.
And regarding the fuel efficiency, how often do you have to fuel the tank?
So you can fit 20 litres in one of those suits behind me, we're over here, and that will last only about 4 or 5 minutes.
Is this petrol or diesel? Petrol.
So most of the time we try and run jet fuel, but jet fuel that comes to a surprise to most people is pretty much the same stuff as diesel. So it's as dangerous as diesel is, which is you know, to be respected, but it's not gasoline. It doesn't form vapor clouds. It won't suddenly blow up. I mean, you have to really work very hard to try and blow diesel up, and jet fuel behaves in the same way, which is exactly why it's used in the aviation industry. You know, you have to really hold a naked flame against raw fuel, jet fuel or diesel, for quite a while before it'll ignite. So it's, as fuels go, it's way less scary than gasoline or even lithium batteries, actually.
All right. And is there any specific weather condition? Like, for example, I imagine I spent 6 months in Canada where it was -40 or even -45 sometimes. Is the jet suit able to fly in a very, very cold country?
I mean, that's one of the benefits of doing 103 events in 30 countries. We've flown in the most ludicrous of environments, even 6,000 feet up in Johannesburg and the Arizona mountains. We've flown in -10, I think, in Germany before. We've flown, you know, in your good country there, and in Saudi, you know, 45 or so. It's all possible, and it's worked in all of those locations. Cold air is brilliant for thrust generation. You'll take cold, dense air and you heat it up and it expands, and that's what creates the thrust. If you put 45 degrees centigrade air in, it's already a little bit warm, so it doesn't create anywhere near the same thrust. So I prefer cold rather than hot. At those kind of -40 conditions, I'd be worried about the integrity of metal and plastic when the suit isn't running. I would worry about things being brittle. But other than that, no, they would run great guns. They would have to be dialed right back because of the density of the air.
But you have Kevlar elements also on the suit, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, for blade off protection and things like that. Otherwise, most of the suit is printed in polymer, so nylon, 3D printed polymer. That entire, you know, collection of suits, they're printed in nylon with also aluminium printed parts as well. We used to use titanium, but to be honest, it's way overkill. It's too tough. You can't drill holes in it. And
you have a carbon fiber helmet, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, yes, indeed.
Yes, I'm having some imagination right now, and I'm imagining Richard Browning flying over a volcano, right? You can see a lot of people being afraid because they don't have the equipment and don't have the material. But now that you have the stuff to go over, you know, to go over a volcano, you know, in activity, would you dare doing that?
It doesn't really pass the recoverable failure test. No, I think if I was suffering from some terrible terminal illness that probably meant I was going to die within a year, but I still had the fitness to do it, then I would do it. But I mean, innovation at its core is about the willingness to go down the untrodden pathway, take risk, but most importantly, keep surviving failures. Because, you know, as anybody who's set up their own business, you know, it sounds like you've, you know, been on an interesting journey with your business. You know, you have to take risks. You get knockbacks all the time. All the things you thought were going to be easy turn out to not be. And every now and then you're lucky and you get a break, but most of the time it's a relentless slog through failure and setback after failure and setback. This was no different. And if every single time I had a failure or setback, I was going to be burnt alive in a volcano, I'm not going to achieve much. So it would not be something I don't think it would be sensible. No. I like taking measured risk that is recoverable, really, because then I can keep trying and keep playing and keep going to ever more adventurous things. I like the idea though. No one's ever suggested that one, so have a badge for that.
Yeah, please. Thank you. Yeah, please. If you do it, let me know. I would be interested to see that.
Yeah, I think the terminal illness thing, for some very good, meaningful reason, where if it does go wrong, you think, well, never mind. You know, I ended quickly then, but that's yeah. Ooh. No, anyway, next, hit me another question.
It's a hidden one, yeah. But
you might also
think about it. Think about it.
Hang on.
Yeah.
I want to give you a scientific reason why it's a crap idea, which is that the gas exhaust from a volcano probably could interrupt the jets. You might get, apart from the hot air, which reduces the thrust, and you'd have to compensate for that. You might get a bunch of unusual gases that might interrupt the combustion cycle, which will be an interesting discovery, but again, one that you'd not recover from. And a parachute would be just annoying. It would just prolong the misery. So no, I'm not going to do that. I've decided. No, yeah? I'm not going to do that.
Well, think about it. Yeah, well, you broke a couple of records, and to be honest, with my business right now, what we are running during the month of Ramadan, we are running one webinar session every day, and it lasts 2 hours for 1 month. So we're running like 32 webinars. It's basically 64 hours of webinars nonstop. And this is the longest webinar marathon in the world, which we are running right now.
Takes your mind off being hungry, I guess.
Yes, I don't see the day. I'm serious. I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
I don't feel the hunger because I'm so busy in organizing, speaker management, marketing, posting, and dealing with the last minute urgent inquiries. So it's not an easy thing to do, but it's so passionate. And I really, really would love you to attend one of the webinar sessions about innovation and success.
Yeah, sure. Okay, as long as it's not 24 hours or whatever. Yes.
No. It's
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really honored to have you on the podcast. This is going to be on YouTube. This is going to go on LinkedIn. You'll be tagged, of course, and I really believe and I really wish the collaboration will be on the long-term basis. And you sound like a very, very friendly guy. And keep the great job. Honestly, keep the great job. I see the human being first, and I see how generous you are with your time. And I've seen many interviews that you have been part of, and it's just an amazing experience from my side to be part of your journey. Honestly. Yeah, please.
As I say, especially at the moment, it's a pleasure if I could try and alleviate any small amount of boredom that a lot of people are experiencing at the moment. It's a really tough situation at the moment. I think this is going to outrun, potentially both world wars in terms of the scale of the impact on a lot of people. So yeah, anything that we can do to help, then it's a pleasure.
So what's the advice you can give to our audience during this pandemic? What they can do to stay positive?
I mean,
people are losing their jobs. People are losing jobs.
Yeah, I know. It's
losing lives.
I mean, what I'm about to say will be maybe helpful to some people, but other people will just be like, well, maybe they're just not minded in this way. A large part of the reason I've done this after a sensible career as a oil trader in the City of London, I'm reliving and also somewhat delivering on unfulfilled ambition of my father, who unfortunately took his own life when I was 15 from a failed business venture. So I inherited from him all the passion for going and having a challenging idea. In fact, you know what? I've just gone and picked up. Here we go. This is all very live. That is the front suspension from a bicycle.
Oh, nice.
That is about 25 years old, and he pioneered that. Cannondale went round with the idea in the end. That's another story. But all the engineering is brilliant. The idea was brilliant. His ability to navigate through a minefield of commercial challenges. He just didn't survive one of the failures, and it cost him his life. So I learned that lesson in a very hard way, and that's no surprise that I've then sort of put the money away during a sort of normal career before I've opened the tap on doing this. Now, this is a very healthy business, but I wouldn't want to have set out on this journey trying to, pay a mortgage out of it necessarily. I would encourage people to take the challenge that life throws at them, and try and see the energy and positivity in it. Try and see it as a new opportunity to look at what they really enjoy, look at what they really love, move away from the job they probably hated or they were slave to in some way. Try as far as possible, derive inspiration from what you like to do as a kid or something like that, and emerge from this mess, with a new zest for life, a new respect for freedom, a new respect for, or a new desire to pursue something that's more heartfelt. But I appreciate that's hard, right? And when you're feeling pretty miserable, then that's not helpful. But that's the best you can do, really. I would say, and I need to revise this as a thing. There's something like 5 coping mechanisms to stress, whether you're watching an avalanche head towards you or coping with a bereavement or a business or whatever. The first few, and I forget exactly the names of them, they're somewhat denial and disbelief. Some people literally, the reaction, and it's been recorded, they just stare in disbelief at this avalanche coming towards them, and they don't react. Their brain literally can't cope. And I think it's an entirely normal human behavior to experience some of that. I think the lesson is just try and move on to the next stage, the coping and adapting and overcoming stages. You just got to get on with it, right? This has happened. We can't do much about it more than it's being done already. Just be a survivor rather than a victim of it as far as you can be in terms of the mental coping challenge. But, it's very hard to try and tell somebody to do that. You've got to find the strength somewhere yourself to do it.
And and we all have that feeling that this is going to last for some time. It's It's not going to be like recovered anytime soon, unfortunately. And that is changing the human being's behavior right now, the way we interact with people. I'm a very face-to-face person. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're. When you love networking, you like interacting with people and talking, and the face-to-face meetings always makes a difference. Now we're talking remotely. We are 1,000 miles apart.
Yeah.
And yeah, wearing face masks, wearing gloves, keeping the social distance. It's
not very human, is it?
Absolutely. It's going to take some while to move away. It's going to take some while, I think. And I really love the fact that you use your 3D printers to produce face masks and help the NHS and help the nurses out there to try
in a
to
small
save
way.
lives.
Yeah, we printed 100 or so, 120 or so, and locally here we're okay at the moment. We've got some resources left to do some more, but yeah, it was nice to try and help in a small way. And there were non-disposable ones, so at least they're sort of still around, which I guess therefore 100 makes quite a difference. But yeah, it's been a really unusual few weeks, and yeah, I think we've all just got to plan and assume it's going to last for a bit longer, and not assume it's going to go back to normal anytime soon.
And one last question, Richard, what's the thing that you're dying of doing after this lockdown is lifted? One thing.
Yeah, well, going to some events. I mean,
there you go.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm honest, I got a bit tired of doing 100 events, most of them me. With my teams, different members of my team, but nearly always involving me in some capacity. It was starting to get quite tiring, that amount of traveling and that amount of events where you've always got the pre-event stress of making sure everything works, and we never failed to deliver an event and all that kind of stuff. That was a lot of effort went into that. Actually, I'm kind of missing it a little bit now. I quite like the buzz of getting out there, and every time we went to an event, the suit was slightly different. We keep iterating and changing it, and it was quite rewarding to prove that iteration worked. And yeah, it'd be nice to get out and see some crowds at some point, but hopefully in the context of our race series, that might be our next event at the rate we're
going. Yeah. And have you considered having some e-learning, or studying some e-learning distantly with some of your clients? Is it possible, really?
So one answer would be, from a kids and STEM point of view, there's a lot of downloadable e-learning PDFs on our website at gravity.co. People can go and download. For flight training clients, not really. There's a little training film we send people to sort of work on some of the process, but mostly you have to feel it. It'd be like doing a download online course to learn to ride a bike. There's only so much you can really do, I would have thought.
All right. That is it for me. I'm not going to waste too much of your time. You have been generous. You have been generous enough. I really thank you very much for being part of that Signature Network podcast. And hopefully we'll see you soon on our webinar series. Yeah.
Thank you.
I would love to try someday one of your technology, but when it will be powerful enough to lift me up. Oh.
You can still on the tether. You can still jump around like you're on the moon and feel amazing. Free flight, yes, is a little more tricky. But yeah, no, it'd be a pleasure having you over sometime.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the gravity industries, so the word gravity, you have the dream to go to fly the moon one day?
It'd be pretty cool. Yeah, you'd need something other than jet engines, but yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, they need too much air, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Anyway, pleasure talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you. Stay in touch.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.